snap.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Youth Ministry Booster Podcast. This is part 3, hanging out with Dr. David Odom here at New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary, talking about deconstructing youth ministry. Yep, you heard it right. We're talking about what was, what is, and what must surely be. But this time, sir, we're talking about how we're going to do it in a state of being tired. Like, you don't have to go to a lot of conferences to ask a lot of youth pastors, how are you feeling? And the two answers that we get are busy and tired. We're tired.
There you
We're
go.
tired. Which I think is probably just the cultural reflection as well.
Right.
Do you feel like is that just the norm for us as people today? Is that we just walk around exhausted?
I think so. I think we're
Okay.
we're busy, and we're whatever our vocation is, whatever job we have, we sort of feel
Yeah.
the stress of the busyness of life. Yeah.
For all the technology, for all the whatever. What did you say last episode? We've never been more connected and yet more alone.
Right.
We've never been more convenienced and more
on.
more tired too.
Right.
it's
The
so-
frenzied life. Right.
Yeah. Frenzy is the operating word. I think for a lot of people.
Well, technology was sort of built as a way to sort of make life easier.
yeah.
right.
The promise.
The promise of
It's
of
the
an easier
balm that
life.
fixes the itch of life. Yes.
Come on.
Yeah.
And how's that worked out for us? Not so much.
Great, not great.
Yeah.
I just need more technology.
Right. That's it. That's it.
Oh, it's just so damaging.
Oh,
Yes.
no.
Well, I wanted to ask a little bit because I think this is a necessary conversation after hearing what was, maybe what needs to be, in any spirit of like changes that need to be made. I think for a lot of folks, there's a recoil of like, when am I going to have time to do that? Like that's always I think whether that's a senior pastor or youth pastor, any ministry leader, it's like we feel the burden of change. Maybe things aren't going as they need to go, but when am I going to have time for that? I don't know if I have any more time to add that to the schedule. So now we're looking at, well, then if I'm really going to change something, it's going to be a painful disruption. So given the reality that probably things need to be different than they were or different than they are, how do we do this sustainably? Like, what would your
Right.
encouragement be to a young youth minister, maybe with a young family that wants to do right and sees the gap, sees the need, but is unsure where to make the right strides or steps without endangering their own way of living and doing and joy and happiness? Yeah.
Right. Well, I think that is the danger that I think, my concern with the book is that I would somehow communicate that youth ministers need to do more.
Yeah.
And that you need to just do more and be busier, and that's the problem is you're not doing enough.
The problem is not lack of hustle. Like the thesis is not, well, we haven't worked
That's
hard.
not
It's time
right.
to work hard. It's we want to work hard on the right things.
Sure. And so to realize that, okay, I actually need to give attention to my own health, my own physical health, and family and relationships and those kind of things, and that's going to require margin in my life, right? That's going to require there to be those times every day and certainly through the week that I'm not thinking about youth ministry, that I'm not thinking about the church, and that for me to remain healthy and sustainable and avoid burnout, then I've got to protect those things in my life. And so, it's those things like oftentimes in ministry we'll have days off during the week because we're busy on the weekend and certainly Sunday. And oftentimes in youth ministry we would find ourselves answering the phones or going to a ball game or practice, and it's technically our day off.
The day off where you're in the coffee shop working on the sermon you didn't get done on the day that was your day.
That's the kind of the reality. And so anytime that those kind of things infringe on that time or infringe on family time or time with our spouses, I think we're in danger of really experiencing that weariness and that frustration that comes with ministry.
What are some of those marks or stressors? Like, this is one of the things we
Yeah.
just talked about even over lunch as friends. Like, there's just some things that show up when we see in our people. Chad's joke from the podcast is always a messy car or sarcasm.
Okay.
That people who that there's food wrappers that are multiple days old,
Right.
or the person who's usually a little bit more warm ends up being a little more chippy or
Mhm.
sarcastic.
Mm-hmm.
That maybe there's stressor beyond just like the day. Do you see
Right.
some? You work with a lot of young students that are kind of managing time and life and expectations. Are there
Sure.
some other stressors that we can kind of lay out and name for folks that are trying to be responsible?
Well, I love the Snickers commercials.
Yeah.
You're not
You're
you.
not
You're
you.
not you
That's
when you're
right.
hungry.
That's right. That's right.
And I think it's true. And I think we see some of those behavioral traits, those shifts in the way in which we're responding to one another, like you're saying about short with one another or whatever. Um, you know, missing appointments or late when you're normally on time. Those kind of things that need to be red flags for us and
Yeah.
and help us to identify those in ourselves
Yeah.
as well as
Do you have
others.
some for you that are yours? Like, would you be so honest to
Wow.
share? Like,
Wow.
sorry, just right here calling you out on it.
Sure.
Is there some that like? I mean, you don't have to tell for your. We'll save it for your students. but,
No,
like,
yeah, for
but
my
everybody,
students,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Not for me. No, I think
He's
definitely.
using the green pen again.
Right. When I'm I'm tired or hungry
Yeah.
or those kind of things, I'm definitely not. I'm definitely going to be leaning towards anger or easily just sort of fly off the handle
Yeah,
kind of
irritable,
thing.
yeah,
All
okay.
those kind of things, being short with people when I maybe normally would not. But yeah, so definitely. But I think it speaks to some of the things that we want to recognize in our own lives that maybe we see in people is regular sleep and making time for some of these things that are important.
I have a professor friend, and she says that for most of her young ministry students, a solid 8 hours rest, a hot shower, and two good meals might fix it.
Might just fix everything, right? That's so.
So
That's
if
so
you're
true.
if you're
Yeah.
under 30 and involved in ministry, when was the last time you had 8 hours of
Come
sleep,
on.
a hot shower, and two solid meals in a row?
Yeah.
Yeah. So-
That's good. That's really good.
hard to say. Hard
I
to
mean,
say.
that's solving a lot of issues just
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah.
Well, I think the other piece for me is the importance of relational accountability. I think in terms of I reflect back on significant seasons of ministry in my own life when I leaned in hard to fellow youth pastors that
Yeah.
I was meeting with in accountability groups on a
Yeah.
weekly basis, that we were carving out time. Usually it was real early in the morning. We were meeting once a week and just being open and honest. It was an opportunity for us to gripe and complain about our churches, our ministries, our pastors, in a safe environment of other fellow youth leaders, but also folks that were really willing to call me on some things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think most often, I mean, the one thing that sticks out in my mind is at the time there was a movie, that was popular at the time, and there's lots of sex and nudity and all this kind of things, and we were of course talking to our youth groups about don't need to be seeing this movie and those kind of things, that kind of thing. And we were having that conversation, and one of the guys said, "Well, that's all fine and good, and we tell our kids not to watch that, but the problem is I want to see it."
Oh, sure.
Yeah. And I
yeah.
just appreciated the transparency of that
Yeah,
moment
he's
and the
I know what I
honesty.
said, but here's what I meant.
I
Yeah,
mean, really,
yeah.
and I mean, it just struck me, and I think it was a turning point for all of us to say, "Oh, okay, so this is a space where we can say these
Real.
really
Yeah.
struggle moments, these moments that we've not shared with anyone, right?" And we need those things. I think that when we think of longevity in ministry, we think of avoiding burnout. We need opportunities to be able to let go and to sort of unburden ourselves in those moments. And so
Yeah.
I think for any leader who does not have an accountability group or a friend group like that,
Yeah.
I would just be seeking that out.
Yeah.
In our day and culture today, maybe that's even on Zoom or something like that,
Yeah.
right? Virtually. It's you seeking out a connection with someone that gives you an opportunity to say, "Hey, I'm having a tough week," or
Yeah.
"I'm really struggling in this area." Because when we're talking about some of these big issues, whether it's sexual sin that has that potential to, blow up our families and our relationships and derail us in ministry for the rest of our lives, I think that we're talking about things like that started, and the root of those things were perhaps when we were neglecting our time with the Lord
Yeah.
and our time in Bible study, and our own personal time in Scripture reading, and maybe this lack of accountability or the margin. I was just reading a scripture. Speaking of scripture reading, my daily reading this week has been on David's sin with Bathsheba,
Yeah.
and the whole famous passage where Nathan comes, to
Yeah,
David and tells the
You
story.
are he.
You are the man, right?
You are that man.
I love that,
Yeah.
and what I see in that, of course,
It's quite the dramatic moment.
it's very
It's a
dramatic
very
moment.
dramatic
I
moment.
mean,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
it's a Hollywood moment. But what I think it's helpful to me is to see that even kings are accountable, right?
Yeah.
And I have to be willing to submit myself to accountability, even when it's uncomfortable, or that I'm gonna not look forward to it, but I know that I need that,
Yeah.
and that's valuable.
That's good. Well, I think it's one of those. You use the word burden, and I think there's something for a lot of ministry leaders that the calling feels like the burden instead of allowing the assignment to be the burden, right? Like being called into ministry
Yeah,
is greatly important. It is a piece of who you are. But the work in front of you at this church in this moment in this season needs to be something that at some point you can lay down. There has to be a way with a group of trusted friends where you can be David and not Professor Odom. Where I
Right.
can be Zach and not the guy that I call from Lifeway. Where you
Right.
can be Brandon or Jacob or Stephanie. That's a person that has a life and a family and isn't just always, that's I try to be careful when I name things and to call my pastor when I need him as pastor and to call him by his name when he's my friend.
Wow.
Because those titlings matter. And I think for a lot of youth ministry folks, it's a high and heavy calling, but it should be a burden at some point that we can set aside to just be. Or else it will, because if you're always carrying it, it will break you. And I think hearing even the humor of youth ministry friends, and that's where a lot of our booster group folks, like they get to share that, like the reality of like, yeah, we have so much on the church calendar. It's crazy. Like someone needs to be allowed to say that, like, we're doing too much.
We're
like,
doing too
this
much.
This is they want double what we did last. This is crazy. Like there needs to be an honesty that way, or there needs to be a painful reality of like I did not do well this summer in planning for my family. Like where can I admit that I was wrong? Where can I talk about where I did fail without having, like, every failure in ministry seems to be like the failure. Where can we have the little failures that were like, we tried it, it didn't work. Or, this summer I spent too much time at the church, not with my family. So next summer I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to get better.
Right.
Like we need these things in the same way that our students, we want them to own their faith through like doubt and question. I think some of us have to grow in our calling through like confession and failure. Like we've got to own what's right and own what's wrong in the places that it's up to us, because there are things that we're being asked to do. And I think this is one of the things for us to talk about in the wake of changes need to be made, are the pressures that we feel. But like, what would you say is actual success in ministry? Like, to go back to the beginning of, we've been kind of chasing this, like what youth ministry has been and what it ought to be, but to reverse engineer it and ask the question, like, how do we know if we're actually doing a good job? Like, how do we, like, if we could paint that picture and try to run towards it, like, other than what we could do or could add or could change, what does it mean to be successful in what we're doing?
Yeah, that's good. Well, and I think that there's two parts of it too. Certainly we think in terms of the short term, but I think the reality is that much of what we look for success in youth ministry, we don't see until the long term, right? From years from now, right? And where we see, students that have been a part of our youth group are now young adults serving in our church or some way, or involved in church, leading their own families, and active in their faith and those kind of things. I think those are the successes that we long for and that we look for, but we may not see for years to come. And so we look to the short-term successes, which would be, again, I think some of the things about student involvement and discipleship and opportunities to see students making significant choices for their faith. I think of conversations with a student who would come to me, in tears, talking about how they weren't invited to a celebration or a party and that kind of thing, and they were feeling ostracized because of a stand that they made, a belief that they,
yeah,
articulated, and they've been sort of ostracized. And in that moment, you're hurting for
yeah.
that individual,
Mhm.
certainly, and you're wanting to be there, but you're also recognizing that that's an indication of spiritual growth in their life,
Yeah,
that they were
yeah,
willing to sacrifice that, that opportunity to celebrate, to stand up for what they believe, right,
mm,
and to live out their faith in a way that was significant for them. And so I want to hold on to those types of things that I experience with students, those small victories,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Those small victories put together can really sustain and really help us build momentum in ministry. And so I want to be on the lookout for those
yeah.
things. And, it's not always going to be, we had, 100 more this year than
Yeah.
we had last year.
We
But
reached the goal
w-
that we plastered on the
come
wall
on,
and set
right.
aside because we, 50 more and
Yeah,
24 or whatever.
exactly,
Yeah, yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
It's not always going to be those kind of things. It may just be, these maybe seemingly insignificant conversations with students, but really show and demonstrate the work of God in their life,
yeah. Mm,
and that should feed us, right?
yeah,
That should encourage us as leaders to say, okay, yeah, something that we're saying, something that we're doing in our relational ministry with students is making a connection.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Well, I think in some ways seeing it and celebrating it.
yeah.
I think one of the things I've seen to be true from a lot of youth ministry folks is we throw these big celebrations for the event, right? Like it's the event gets the budget, the event gets the time, the event gets the celebration. We did it. Camp was here,
Right,
but where is the like legit party for the baptisms or the standing in faith or
right.
testimony night where the kids actually wrote, memorized, and shared their testimonies? Like,
Yes,
these are things that like should be as celebration worthy as
definitely.
any fun idea or long stand. Like have the tradition of like on this night 10th graders share their testimony and we celebrate it the
Right.
mess out of it.
Big
Like
time.
make that a thing in a
Yeah,
way that and you said it right, feeds you, fuels you, and lets you see that what's happening is something that is a surge of activity, not by our planning, but by God's work. Because I
yeah.
do think that when burnout usually becomes the conversation, the depletion of dependency
Mm,
is shortly
mm,
thereafter.
mm.
That usually folks that are feeling burnout are just doing it out of their own effort.
Right,
And I think that there's something to the margin that we didn't give
right.
for God to intervene or God to speak or for the Holy Spirit to move.
Yeah.
But I think also because we thought we could just fix it.
Mm,
And I think that is sometimes we've imagined the problem and we're going to imagine the solution and we don't consult God during any of it.
right,
And I
right.
think that there's something that for ministry leaders to see the ways in which what we're about, you weren't called into it alone, therefore
Mm,
you were not entrusted to finish it alone
that's right.
is really significant. So
That's so good. That's so good.
what is we're entering into a summer season and beyond. What's some encouragement for the busy youth ministry you want to share? You've had them in the
Mm,
classroom the last year.
right.
They're now hitting in the stride of the middle to end of summer. What would you want to encourage them with?
Yeah, I would definitely encourage some times of rest, right? To
Yeah.
take some breaks and
Give us look. Rest is right. Give
yeah.
us some. Give us some. Give us some achievements unlocked, achievable goals.
Okay,
Like
okay.
you say, rest. Is that a 3-hour nap? Is that a day at the lake?
Right.
Is that a long hike? Is that a? Give
Well,
me some examples. Give me some things that I can mark off my bucket list.
yeah, definitely. I think it's all of those things, and it's maybe going to depend on the kind of who we are and
Okay.
our personality.
Personality, okay.
Sure, right, and what works with us, because some of us, want to, be around others, and others of us want to
Be around no one.
right. We want to be alone, and it depends on what is kind of working for
That
you.
was my wife's Mother's Day card that I got her. 'Cause she's my introvert. It was just Happy Mother's Day, introvert. I promise to leave you alone.
Okay, there you go, and that's my gift to
That's
you.
it. You're welcome. Yeah,
exactly
you're welcome.
right.
Yeah. It was like
Yeah.
that, and there was like a shopping gift card where she could go to her favorite store.
Okay,
That was
she
it.
could
Yeah, it was
do
just
that too.
time alone. That's it.
Right.
That is the gift. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Well, and I think one of the things that's hard about it is that oftentimes when we're taking these breaks, we feel guilty about it. We
Yeah.
feel like, well, I should be planning something for my
There's
youth.
more I could do. Yeah.
I mean, there's more I could, we don't have this figured out or this piece and that kind of thing. But I still have got to push through maybe any anxious moments that creates in me to say, no, I need this, right?
Yeah.
This is what's best for me. And I think that we definitely want to do that.
That's good.
I think that one of the easy pieces, not really even an add-on for the summer, when you're thinking of summer, we oftentimes are thinking about camp and mission trips and, fun things and various things that maybe service opportunities for students. I want to maybe think about debrief times, right? I want to make sure that I'm building in each of those moments opportunities where either at the end of that week or when we get back to our regular schedule, that I'm having opportunities for students to think about and process those experiences and to even think about maybe what might be next, right?
Yeah.
What are opportunities? What did I learn this week at camp or in serving this week on mission trip that would empower and encourage me for continued ministry here at home? And so, and that's just kind of a debrief piece.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, one of the challenges ahead for so many folks, not just in the immediacy of summer, but again, we reference the book a lot. Thank you so much for the volume that you've written, for the contribution it is to the conversation, for the arena's research that gives us, I think, a glimpse into. One of my favorite things is that you actually have youth ministry leaders. I don't know what all parts they played, but I recognize some names there from Texas and Tennessee that were folks that were, I think, living into entrenched youth workers, enlivening the conversation about what was happening and the ways in which you saw it. So I want to kind of leave our time here with you, you giving us kind of where you're at of like what's feeding you, and what's in your feed and what's feeding you.
Okay, right.
Because one of the things we always want to know is what are the people that we trust? How are they growing? What are they learning?
Yeah.
And so for someone that's give us a lot to chew on from what you've written and done, what is in your feed and what's feeding you, Dr. Odom?
Okay, all right, that's good stuff. Well, there's a couple of things, so I'm an empty nester. We were talking earlier about this, and both my daughters are now in their 20s.
Fresh time found. Yeah,
I'm telling you, it's great. It's really, and my wife and I are loving that.
Yeah.
But what the result is that we're spending a lot of time outside and gardening and these kind of things and doing some of the things that we like. So on my feed are all these things about garden hoses and the best fertilizers over here. And
have you bought anything new because of it?
Okay. I'm right there. I'm like, I need that water sprayer right there. That
it's
extension.
got 9 settings.
I mean, come on, right? Who doesn't need that?
Everything else has got 7. It's got 9.
Exactly. Right. The other part of it is I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan.
Okay.
And so, we just had
right
NFL.
here in New Orleans. Okay.
I knew, right here
against
with the
all
Saints.
odds. Against all odds.
And against all odds of still being a Cowboys fan after all these years.
There's so many other choices, Dr.
Oh, there's so many.
So many other choices.
It's so bad.
Yeah.
But I'm a diehard fan, and my dad before me a huge fan, and so I feel that sort of legacy and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So my feed is all kinds of updates on players and that kind of thing.
A lot of prayer requests.
Of course.
Pray for the Cowboys.
Yeah. Well, my wife likes
pray for
to
Jerry
say,
Jones.
come on. My wife likes to say, her favorite time of year is preseason because we're all all hopeful.
Belief.
Belief. The season before us, there's so much potential. Yeah, and then we actually play the games.
Yeah,
that's
right.
That's tough.
Oh, man.
But some of the stuff that I've been reading recently, I just want let's see. Let me mention Shane Pruitt has a book coming out with Professor from DBU.
Yep.
On reaching Gen Alpha.
Yep.
And they've got some great stats and research and stuff. And so they just had a webinar last week on that, and their book coming out in June 5th or something like that. So that's some excellent stuff. A book that's been out a while called Relational Spirituality, written from a psychology standpoint, and not your traditional ministry or pastoral role. So that's been interesting to see some of the psychological elements of relationship that play into faith and discipleship. So that's been interesting. But I always encourage people to. This is kind of out of left field. I think that we also, in the midst of when we're talking about margin and we're talking about avoiding burnout. I read a lot of academic stuff as a professor, but I also try to read some things just for pleasure.
Sure,
right? And so I've got one out of left field. This is an odd title. This book is called there is no anti-mimetic division.
Okay.
Okay, that's the name of the book,
Okay.
and it's by a pseudonym named Quantum. I think the author's real name is Hughes. But if you're a fan of the TV show Severance on Apple TV, if you're that kind of it's a sci-fi kind of a thing.
You're connecting. Come
Okay, all right.
come on, yeah.
So this is a really kind of out there sci-fi book.
Okay.
Quick read. Really fun and nothing, spiritually redeeming about it. But nothing to really.
Well, but I don't know. Are you I'm a fan of the show Severance? Are you
Oh,
a
I
fan?
love love Severance. Yeah.
There's something to that, like that duality of
There
self
is.
or identity construct that I think
Right.
is so very
Right.
postmodern, right? Like
Yeah.
whether or not it's like work based or socially based.
Yeah.
But there's more than one teenager that has an avatar of who
Yes.
they are online versus offline. And I
Right.
think there's something very real
There
in
is.
the identity formation politicking that exists. And
Definitely.
So, okay.
Definitely. Yeah, that's
Well, check it out.
good.
Come on. You're
Yeah.
talking to nerds. Come on. You got
Come
yeah,
on.
yeah, yeah.
So check it out. Check
Okay.
it out. So
Okay. You mentioned earlier comic books. Do you have any comic volumes or authors you keep up with?
not so much. I mean,
Okay.
I'm a Marvel fan.
Okay.
I love Spider-Man,
Okay.
and definitely remember as a kid collecting and reading as many Spider-Man
Were
comic
you
books.
doing like Amazing and Spectacular?
all of
and
that?
All that. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
and so we're going back, right? So this would have been late '70s, early '80s,
Oh,
and that
okay.
kind of thing. So it's going back, but yeah, loving it, and then loving all the movie iterations, and looking
Yeah.
forward to new ones coming out. and
Brand
all
New
that.
Day. Yeah.
Yeah,
Brand
I
New
mean,
Day.
it's gonna
Come
be
on.
it's gonna be fun.
Okay.
So it's gonna be
Okay.
really good.
Good.
And I think there's some connection there for us, because I think there's an opportunity related to Spider-Man and the famous quote that says, with great power comes great responsibility, right?
Yeah.
And I think youth pastors, youth ministers, have a great amount of influence
Yeah.
and power there. I mean, as we've said, we are ministering to teenagers at a significant time of life, unlike any other time of life, when they're facing questions of identity and purpose and belief and all these things. And we have that responsibility, that tremendous privilege
Yeah.
to care for them and love for them during that time and season of life.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, Dr. Odom, it's been great. If you enjoyed this series, make sure to check out the links below for the other parts, and then also to pick up his book at B&H or wherever you get your booksellers from. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this and our future summer seminary series. We can't wait to learn with you more, and we'll talk back to you soon.